Hi, guys. I have a reading for the collective ready to go for you. If you're not aware, I've been doing zodiac specific readings this week, and I'm going to continue that through the end of the month. 3 zodiac readings per week to cover the whole zodiac by the end of the month. So if you haven't seen those, check them out to see if your sign was covered yet. I've really been liking it so far. I'll decide at the end of the month whether it seems like I should continue to do that for a while, or if I should just stick with collective readings. But I also want to continue to do one collective reading per week. So I really enjoy doing both right now. I feel like I'm learning a lot about this collective because the thing is about zodiac specific tarot readings and tarot readings in general is that they're not, let's say I was doing Scorpio's reading today. It's not that it would apply to every Scorpio. It's that it would apply to Scorpios within a certain collective. So Scorpios who are in a cohort of sorts, who are being ushered through a series of lessons at the same time. So for example, I have 2 kids, one's a Gemini, the other one's an Aries. When I do Gemini and Aries readings, I don't assume that they are going to apply to them because they're kids. And the fact that they're kids alone means that they likely would not be in this collective. In general, I assume if you're attracted to the title of a reading or if the energy or the vibe catches your attention, it might mean that a reading is meant for you, but always use your discernment. And as you're listening to the message coming out, you decide whether or not it applies in your life. Of course, always you are your own best teacher. That's actually part of the message today for this reading. So I'll go ahead and describe a little bit of what I'm seeing in general, and then I'll dive in. So this reading seems to be talking to a group of people who recently have gone through a chapter of some sort that made you aware that it was time to move on from something, whether that be move on from a pattern of behavior, move on from a relationship, move on from some sort of energy, some sort of situation, and you've started that process. There is temptation in this reading that might have been trying to steer you off course or steer you away from that decision. And what's so interesting is this message was coming through in all the zodiac readings I was doing this week. This moving on that I'm talking about seems to be part of this shedding that so many people are going through right now in order to align with their wholest, most full self, and resisting the messaging around you that may not necessarily want you to do that. So the underlying energy for this reading, the energy that kind of runs as a current underneath all the messages, is the devil and overthinking. These are seated right next to each other, and I really like the fact that they ended up that way. The devil in tarot has to do with temptation. It can be temptation of any kind. So it can be temptation to doubt yourself. It can be temptation to engage in patterns of behavior that don't suit you. It can be any temptation that is not for your highest good. And then next to it is overthinking. So I almost wonder if the message of these two together being side by side is that there is going to be a temptation to overthink, second guess, and to really talk yourself out of what it is that you at some level know that you're meant to be doing right now. And then another theme underlying this reading is faith and this legal message. Legal in tarot and in this card for me symbolizes justice. Now, if there is something legal going on, then obviously it would speak to that. If there are some sort of like contracts underway in a really practical sense in your life, this could be speaking to that. So apply this as it fits, but in general, it can just refer to justice, fairness, and it can also be applied to soul contracts. And in some ways, that might be a really interesting way to consider this card because there has been a theme emerging for a while now about certain soul contracts ending and other ones arriving and kind of renegotiating soul contracts so that we can get into better alignment with what it is we're supposed to be doing right now. So faith being to trust that process because something is being birthed here. I mean, she's pregnant. I don't know if you can see, but she has a baby bump going on there, and it's a whole planet. It's like we're birthing worlds here. We're birthing the world that symbolizes our future. Part of that process revolves around rebalancing the scales in some way, rebalancing relationships, rebalancing energies in our life so that we can step lightly into this new cycle. Okay, so those were underlying energies. And then starting off here in the first row is the Two of Wands and the masculine. I'll talk about these 2 cards first. So the Two of Wands has to do with choosing between your comfort zone and moving on to some sort of new adventure. There's a RV here and a little globe. She's staring out the window longingly, kind of craving the new adventure, craving her new chapter. But it does require a choice. It does require some degree of risk because it means stepping away from your comfort zone. And then the masculine card coming along with that, to me, simply suggesting that it's asking you to take authority It's asking you to really step into a place of self-leadership, which means if there have been other people who have been sort of in charge of making decisions around your life, and those decisions are not in alignment with what it is that you're envisioning, it's essentially asking for you to take the reins back. It's easier said than done, but it does seem to be a really important message in this reading, and also in general, astrologically and energetically at this time. And then next to that, I have self-love. And so it really seems to be suggesting that if you're having a hard time making this shift to step into divine authority of your life, to think of it as an act of self-love, not as an act of selfishness. This is part of honoring who you are. And to not do that is not only not fair to you, it's not fair to other people who we're in relationships with, because not operating from a place of self-love makes it really hard to truly love other people. And then along with that, I have use discernment and take the lead. So it's sort of like looking out that window, putting on the lens of your highest self. That's the way that I think of it when I'm thinking of using discernment. Putting on the lens of your highest self and stepping into the role of leadership. What is it that you would choose for yourself moving forward? All of this energy seems to be something that you've already been navigating. So if this reading is for you, all of this should already sound familiar. Where you seem to be right now is that you're already considering or on your way to making movement. The journey's underway. Along with that, I have this soul journey card. It's so beautiful that it came along with this. It so beautifully ties in together. And then together with that, I have strength. To truly start deciding for yourself, to truly start choosing for yourself what you want moving forward, to me, it's the ultimate strength, because it really means potentially letting people down. It really means potentially having to say goodbye to people, places, spaces, things that have been really comfortable, but that ultimately don't necessarily serve where it is that you're headed next. But if this reading applies, the reason why you're doing this, the reason why you're leaving your comfort zone in some area of your life is because you feel deeply called to. Because if you weren't to, your life, your essence, your soul would feel way too constricted, way too small. It's time to really expand and allow space for you to embody your fullness so that you can do what it is that you're supposed to do in this lifetime. Shine your light, because that is what came along with this message as well. This card is called the Center. It's card 44, which is number 8. And number 8 in tarot signifies both the Strength card, which came out along with it, and the Star card. So this has to do with your divine purpose. The Star, to me, highlighting the fact that this is not just a journey, it's a soul journey. And then with that, and I think these two really go together, is Enamor. It's just really signifying love. And this card, it's really talking about letting your light shine from a place of pure love into the world. So as you go along this soul journey, as you start to leave your comfort zone, to allow love and your light to be the guide, to allow that to be the light that illuminates these waters that you're going to travel through. Okay, so the next row speaks about obstacles that are on your path along the way. And what I have here is truth. I'll start off with this. Truth for me in the challenge position, to me, just really highlights the fact that it is going to be an ongoing challenge, perhaps, to make sure that you're being honest with yourself each step of the way. Resist the temptation to allow some sort of mask that you might have worn in the past to filter your decisions or to filter your experience moving forward. And another card in the challenge position, I got to cover it a little bit. It's not like a naked card, but I still think YouTube would censor it. So another card in the challenge position is what's labeled here lust, but really this card signifies temptation. So temptation by things that are not in alignment with your value system. So there's a process here in aligning with your truth to get really clear about what you value most. What are the lines in the sand for you? Maybe that will help you determine what it is that does need to be left behind before you even get on this boat. What do you stand for? What is it that lights you up? Letting your heart lead the way, like I said in the previous row, what is it that really does light your heart up? And really starting to take an honest look at the things that are out of alignment with what you believe in, that are out of alignment with what matters most to you, and letting those things begin to exit your energy. That is part of the challenge here. Because if that were easy, we would have done this already. The fact that this journey is a big deal at all is because it's been hard to do this. So yes, this is part of the challenge. Another part of the challenge is the Three of Cups. So there's a couple different ways that you could look at this. The Three of Cups could be signifying that there is a community aspect of your experience that might be part of the challenge. Maybe that has to do with the fact that you taking these steps might disappoint some people in your community. It might disappoint some people who have been very close to you. If we were to be able to make these changes in a bubble, that would be pretty easy. But the fact is, we're all part of family groups, friend groups, community groups, and showing up in a new way in the environment that we live in is challenging. So along with this are a couple cards that really talk about faith, and it might be really important to challenge yourself to lean into your faith, to trust the bigger process, because what came out along with these cards in the challenge position is God is handling this, spend time with God, and you are being protected. So whatever it is that you believe in, whatever your beliefs are, letting that serve you in your challenge, allowing that to inform you as you're sorting out your truth, as you're sorting out what it is you believe in and what changes might have to be made, because that's going to be hard. But you're supported, you're guided, you have help. Tapping into your heart, tapping into the vibrational frequency of love is going to align you with this. So these two rows really fit well together. And then in the final row, I have recommendations or advice. So what I have here starting off is the Ace of Pentacles. The Ace of Pentacles signifies great potential for success. So in the recommendation position seems to be a message that there's so much potential for success here. This is a gift that is being given. See how it's like this little seedling that's being handed over to you. And with the right nutrients and care, it can grow into something amazing, and it's meant to. So the message seems to be take good care of this gift. Treat it as a gift, one that will require your active participation in order to grow fully into what it's meant to be in your life. And in order to make that happen, it's going to be really important to have good boundaries. I mean, given the fact that we've already talked about how in the underlying energy and elsewhere in this reading, there is temptation. So there is energy around you that could easily steer your boat off course unless you are diligent about setting boundaries for yourself. Also in this row of recommendations or advice is to identify your needs, which also requires boundaries, because if you don't wrap yourself in a bit of an energetic bubble, it's going to be really hard to even sort out what needs are yours and what needs belong to the people around you that would normally get your attention the most. So having strong, healthy boundaries is going to allow you to have a clearer sense of what your needs are. And then finally, in this row, I have the travel card, which is interesting because it just goes right back to the beginning. With the RV here and the globe and her looking out the window, contemplating stepping outside of her comfort zone, that's what this card means. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to travel, although it can absolutely signify that. It could be that you're planning on moving, relocating. But in a general sense, this means stepping out of your comfort zone, which leads us right back to where we started. This is you thinking about doing that in the beginning, and at the end, this is you doing it, taking the action. In the advice column, it's like, do it. Do it. After you've gone through this process, it's time to commit and step out of that comfort zone if you haven't already. Okay, so to wrap up this reading, what I want to do is get you a source message and a few charms. So let's see what we get here. Okay, so what we got here was self-awareness is key. Take time today and go within and spend time with your soul. This is what comes to mind when I read that. Go for a walk in nature and ground yourself. Meditate. Listen to your favorite music. Whatever you enjoy most, do that now. Do that today. So carve out time for yourself. Slow down enough so that you can hear what it is that your heart, your soul is really asking of you here. Don't bypass this process. It's a gift that's being served up to you. Water it, nurture it, so that it can become what it's meant to be in your life. All right, I'm going to grab a few charms to see what comes out. Let's see, a few charms for the collective. What do we got? We have a crown, a tree. So here's a crown. The crown reminds me of this. Take the lead. You're in charge of your life. You put your crown on. Remember who you are. And then this tree. which reminds me of the seed. Plant this seed and see what grows. Something beautiful is meant to come out of it for you. And then along with that, we have a skull and crossbones, which signifies a couple things to me. It reminds me of this warning to beware of temptations around you. Skull and crossbones would be on like a poisonous substance. So it would be like, recognize what's poison in your life. Recognize what's dimming your light, what's steering you away from your path. But it also reminds me of the fact that there are things that are going to have to be shed. There are things that are going to have to go in order to lighten your load and make space for this new chapter in your life. The version of you that you're becoming is not necessarily new. It's simply the version of you that always existed underneath the layers of outside expectations, all the various masks that you've needed to wear. This process is going to ask you to remove those one at a time and take one step closer to becoming in alignment with your highest self. I hope this reading was helpful, and I'll come back with another one soon. Bye.